Atheist Nomads, episode 330. How crazy can the week be?
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin. Joining me is Kylie. Kylie, say something. And Lauren.
Hello.
There's Kylie.
Mama, Daddy.
Kylie, Mama, and Daddy. Yes.
Yep.
That's our...
How will you eat them?
All right, then.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any follow-up for that. This has been the Atheist Nomads. Remember, not all those who wander are... Oh, wait, no, we're not actually done with that. It's time for dusting off the degree. We're going to go ahead and just jump right on in with the week part 2. We talked about the week on episode 226, almost exactly 2 years ago. And I had the idea of talking about it again from a completely different angle. So there will be a little bit of overlap, but not much. So if you were to go to a Revelation seminar, they would probably hide the fact that they're Adventists.
Oh, yeah, the Revelation seminar. Oh, okay. I remember that piece of paper.
Yeah. So they would hide the fact that they're Adventists for roughly the first week.
Yep.
After they've worked their way through forcing history and biblical prophecy into lining up, and I use the word force intentionally there because...
Square peg, round hole kind of situation.
Yeah. If you massage the prophecy dates just right, you end up getting the end result being...
Happy ending.
1844, the Great Disappointment.
Massage. Oh.
And the Great Disappointment is because somebody had counted back using dubious connections.
Quote unquote math.
Right. Like one of the points they use for it is when Napoleon deposed the Pope. But if you're going with that as the mortal wound of the Catholic Church from Revelation, then there's a lot of examples you can use at various points in time.
Yeah, right? I mean, the church, I'm guessing they mean the Catholic Church, has been through a lot of changes.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of weird stuff that you can count as a mortal wound.
Like the numerous times there were...
Wait, has a pope been assassinated?
Yes.
There you go, mortal wound. You have to count back from that day.
Which... The most recent example was from the 20th century, so that would have been after Adventists were doing all their big prophecy work.
Well, they effed up.
They didn't see that one coming.
Wait, what pope got murdered?
It was one of the Johns, or it was John Paul II.
That's a nice generic. One of the Johns.
There's been like 26 Pope Johns. I think it was the predecessor of
murder.
John Paul II.
Murder. Okay, John Paul I. Conspiracy theories. Ooh. Murdered popes.
There have been popes that have been murdered, and so Adventists pick for the mortal wound on the Catholic Church being the Pope being deposed by Napoleon. They don't count the time when there were 3 popes, the Pope, the anti-pope, and the other anti-pope.
That's awesome.
They don't count the time because this would have been after the Adventist Church started doing its major prophetic work in the mid-1800s. They don't count the time that Rome was besieged by, I don't know how many armies in the 1800s, as the Kingdom of Italy was being formed, as opposed to the Papal States. And they had to take over Rome because for a Kingdom of Italy to make sense, they needed Rome as the capital. But since Rome was run by the papacy, they conquered Rome.
Oh, okay.
The papacy went through a lot in the 19th century.
Well, sounds like my 20s. That was hilarious, Kylie.
But in terms of the age of the Catholic Church, this would have been more like they had a really rough, 92nd year of life. Yeah, 90 was pretty good. 91 was pretty good. 93, you're just kind of senile. But 92, oh man, that was a crazy year. All those cancers and, oh man, just rough.
92. If you can make it past then, you probably are regretful.
Yeah. And then after all that, then they start going into how you're a horrible, horrible, sinful person, how Jesus is the answer with salvation and can save you from your horrible, horrible sin. They go through the mark of the beast, and then they tie it all together with what day you should be worshiping God on.
Saturday.
Yep.
According to these people.
So, according to Adventists, the 7-day week has been unbroken since creation.
That's cute.
Uh-huh. And it started with the first day of creation 6 to 10,000 years ago, and it has continued ever since. And, after 6 days of doing creation, God took the 7th day off to rest because he was tired. No, they don't think that he was tired, but
I was going to say,
an example,
you can't be tired if you're God.
To set an example for humanity to take rest and to take a break from work to worship God. Then the Sabbath also ends up, and also they do use to back that up, the first time, the first of the 10 Commandments, because there's 2 separate versions of the 10 Commandments that are found in Exodus. There's also a 3rd version found in Deuteronomy. The first copy,
because we know that the Bible is all about consistency.
Right. The first copy of it
we need a continuity editor for the Bible. I've decided.
Is the 4th commandment is remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. For in 6 days God created the heavens and the earth, but on the 7th he rested. So the reason to keep the 7th day Sabbath is because God rested on the 7th day. A little bit.
Those 2 things don't make sense to me. Why would you worship the day that he rested? Wouldn't you worship the day that he created something awesome like human beings?
That is the day that you worship God on, and you worship as a part of rest.
So Sunday or Saturday, depending on how you say, is the day that you don't need to worship anything.
No, that's when you do your main worshiping.
Well, no, that's
resting.
Dumb. That is dumb. I know. My grandma, she was one of those people who wouldn't go out to eat on Sunday in case that she had to force somebody to have to work. Mm-hmm. It's like they're working anyway.
Right.
It's not.
Now they do make it very serious in the Old Testament very early on. With right after that, you have somebody collecting manna trying to collect manna on Sabbath.
Blue bottles.
Instead of collecting double portion of manna on Friday like you're supposed to, and there is none because manna was only delivered 6 days out of the week.
Wait, what the hell is manna?
That's when the people had no food, so God gave them food in the desert in the 40 years of Israel in the desert.
Oh, so that's the red bottle.
There's no bottle.
Sorry, it's a old game joke.
When the dew would settle, precipitate out, it would turn into this bread-like substance that you would then be able to make into cakes and eat. And there was enough for everybody to collect enough for a day, but if you tried to keep it overnight, it would spoil. Except for Friday, when you have to collect twice as much because there won't be any on Saturday, so that you can rest on the Sabbath. And there is a story. It
didn't spoil that day, though.
It won't spoil that day because this is magical bread.
Right. Well, okay then.
And there's also a story about somebody picking up sticks on the Sabbath and being murdered for it. Righteous execution.
Yeah.
Because murdering somebody for trying to get some sticks to light a fire. Yeah, that's worth killing somebody for.
Lighting a fire is even against the rules, right? And you have to light the fire on Friday evening or something and let it keep burning throughout the day.
Those are modern Jewish rules.
Oh.
That's from the rabbinic tradition that is much more recent.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's where you start getting into crazy things with these very strict rules. And the rabbinic tradition was all about making sure that you don't even come close to possibly breaking the Sabbath. So don't light a fire because that might be work, not because that is work.
Okay.
And don't turn on lights or off lights or on motors or off motors, depending on the particular tradition now in the modern world, because that's basically lighting a fire, and lighting a fire might be work. Therefore, no.
Wow.
Yeah. Adventists don't go to those extremes.
That's why we have smart homes do everything for us.
Those are the servants within your gates.
Yes. Well.
And
okay.
You can't have the servants within your gates working on the Sabbath
Okay,
either.
True.
Then Adventists also have a view of the Sabbath as being the symbol of following God's law, because most Christians have ignored that one and they follow the rest of the 10 Commandments. Therefore, if you're the good people who are following God's law, you're going to be keeping all of the days of the week, all the commandments, including the 4th commandment. Now, this ignores the fact that Catholics have no issue with graven images, and
Obviously.
they fill their churches with them, and their hospitals, and their
Gold
schools.
leaf portraits of freaking Mary, Jesus, everybody.
And statues, and no matter how you define graven images, Catholics have them everywhere. So, not having a hanging graven image of a dying man hanging from your neck, that's not enough to prove that you are God's true followers. You have to also not work on Saturday.
Okay. So we're Saturday and Sunday differentiate.
Okay, so this is one of the next points that Adventists will make, is the day of worship was changed by the Pope to circumvent God's law by making his own law.
When did that happen?
That was a gradual process from roughly 100 CE to about 250 CE, and it was pretty complete by then. And that was actually a process that ended up just being a combination of basically weekly Easter services, starting with a Friday night church service, all day Saturday church service, and then a Sunday morning celebration of Christ's resurrection. And that quickly turned into Saturday was the day that you fasted in between. So you'd have your beginning of this worship service, multi-day worship service, being a big meal on Friday night, and then you don't eat again until the Sunday morning service.
Sunday breakfast. Brunch with bottomless mimosas.
Yes. Well, communion wine.
Or Bloody Marys, depending on where you're going.
The bottomless communion wine. So that changed it from Saturday to Sunday. It was a slow, gradual, natural process. Another big factor that was at play with that was that anytime there was a new wave of anti-Jewish persecution, Roman authorities would mistake Christians for Jews. And so they didn't want to be identified with them. And an easy way of not being identified as Jewish was eat pork and work on Saturday. And if you eat pork and you work on Saturday, nobody's going to think you're a Jew.
It's one of the 10 Commandments, though, so they would risk going to hell just so that they wouldn't be labeled as Jewish.
They also ate pork. Pork isn't in the 10 Commandments, but yeah.
Okay.
So Adventists view it as the Pope changed the day of worship. The Catholic Church acknowledges that, yeah, the Church changed the day of worship. The Catholic Church doesn't argue that point. The Catholic Church also doesn't care.
It's so much more convenient. It's easy on Sunday morning.
So then Adventists will point to that as being the first time when the days and times were changed, was when the Catholics did it. The second time was during the French Revolution with the French Republican calendar. This calendar had 12 30-day months, and each month was divided into 10-day weeks. This was part of decimalization. So they were trying to get everything onto a decimal system as much as possible. So
nice.
10 hours, I think it was 10 hours morning and...
So a base 10.
Yeah. So I think it was 10 hours morning, 10 hours afternoon, 100 minutes per hour, 10 days per week. They couldn't go too far with the rest of the calendar because there's no way for that to cleanly turn into 10
365 days.
To get 360, yeah. Because our calendar is, the year isn't base 10. They stopped there, but that's also
don't get me started on that.
That's also where we get metric.
I'm a real fan of base 10.
Yeah,
You know what? Base 12 and base 60 isn't so bad, but base 10 is just so clean.
The French did, as Adventists will point out, in their process of secularization and decimalization, and depending on which wave of revolution it was, would depend on which was more important. Whether it was more important to get everything off of the old imperialist numerical systems and onto a decimal system. That's where we get the metric system for measurements from. It was also part of a secular agenda of trying to not just get rid of everything royal, but get rid of everything Catholic.
Okay.
And a big way of getting rid of everything Catholic was making sure people worked on Sunday.
Okay. That seems a bit cruel, but only because that was before the days of weekends. And so if you didn't have a day of rest, you just were expected to work all the time.
Yep.
That would suck.
You work 9 days, you get 1 day off after working 9. And it had the convenient benefit of satisfying both secularization by that's rarely going to line up with a Sunday, so good luck going to church. And it also lined up well with decimalization because they created a 10-day week instead of a 7-day week.
Okay.
The Adventists view this as an attack on God's law by trying to change the dates and times, except this had nothing to do with the seventh-day Sabbath. Jews had already been fucked for a long time in Western Europe. Adventists weren't a thing yet. This was all about fucking over Catholics. Which Adventists believe the Catholic Church is the beast of Revelation.
Satan.
So basically, in the Adventist working of this, the beast, the one beast is punishing the other beast because they hate
secularization is punishing
the not beast
Catholic.
The logic falls apart quickly.
Yes, obviously, religion.
And they also will use as an example the Soviet calendar. The Soviet Union tried to get people off of a 7-day week. They started this in 1929 and fully abandoned it by 1940.
Ouch.
Factories were on a 6-day week and most administrative functions were on a 6-day week. Now, these were explicitly work weeks. So you work with the factory, everybody rotated through who was off work. With you work 5 days and take a day off.
Yeah, okay.
And people hated it because if, say, you and your husband worked different days...
You never get the days off together.
Yep. This also allowed them to try to get everybody working. So all the factories were running continuously, which created no time for maintenance on the equipment. So everything started breaking down.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how they overlooked that.
Yep. So it ended up not being great for efficiency, and they eventually switched to...
Heck, now they're showing that 4 work days is more efficient.
So the Soviets eventually went to everybody being on a 6-day week. So you work 5 days, you take a day off. You work 5 days, you take a day off. And everybody gets the same days off, unless you're the poor schmuck that has to work on doing the maintenance on the equipment in the factories. Your day off is going to be different, so... You're fucked because you're a maintenance person, not a good worker. That was all abandoned in 1940 because it sucked and nobody liked it.
Yeah, sounds miserable.
So Adventists will use that as an example of the godless communists trying to attack God's people. I don't think very many Adventists would recognize Russian Orthodox as God's people.
Well, yeah, nobody recognizes each other as God's people.
And the Soviets didn't care about Adventists. There weren't really any there.
They're just a made-up religion.
They also didn't care too much about Jews because they'd been working pogroms for centuries, killing as many Jews as they could. So there weren't a whole lot of people they were concerned about wanting to take Saturday off. But they did have a goal as part of trying to make an atheistic society, making it so that people can't go to church on Sunday.
So just making it so that everybody has to work on Sunday.
Not always working on Sunday, just usually. Now, Adventists will also use, as an example, these modern secular business week calendars that have Monday as the beginning of the week and the weekend at the end of the week.
Yeah. Okay.
And those are especially nefarious because
of course
they make Sunday the 7th day, not Saturday.
Yeah, I guess. Who cares? I mean, usually Sunday is the first day of the week, right?
Right.
On the calendar.
Except for with these business week calendars.
But it's still not the 7th day. No, Saturday's the 7th day. They want Saturday to be the 7th day.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And since with these business week calendars, Monday is the first day, it moves Sunday to the 7th day. And those are more common in Europe than they are in America, but you will find them around the US as well. What's kind of funny here is these attempts to change the calendar, nobody cared about the 7th day. They were all concerned about Sunday.
Okay.
Adventists are very concerned about Sunday laws when they believe the U.S. will be trying to force everybody to not work on Sunday.
Yeah, because that's going to happen.
Oh, those have actually been on the books. They're almost all gone now.
Right, because you can't function.
The last
society doesn't function that way.
Those were called blue laws, and the last remaining ones are just around whether or not or when on a Sunday you can buy alcohol. That's as much as is left. It was a major change a couple years ago when Idaho liquor stores opened up on Sunday and then moved their opening hours on Sunday from not opening until 1 after everybody was out of church to opening at the normal time.
Oh.
That is an example of a blue law trying to force a pro-Sunday agenda.
It's just
funny. And
funny.
it's the pro-Sunday agenda is what Adventists are afraid of. And they're big examples of people trying to change the days and the times have nothing to do with a pro-Sunday agenda. It's an anti-Sunday agenda.
Yeah, so so why do they care?
It's backwards. But if you need to fill a 27-day evangelistic series, you need to have stuff to try to bolster your points.
Maybe they shouldn't have made it 27 days. Maybe they should have made it like 15. I mean, that's a little ambitious.
And the 7-day week, people have tried to get off of it and always go back. It has nothing to do with God creating the earth in 7 days. The 7-day week has a very simple and well understood origin. Adventists will try to argue that there's no way that it makes sense unless it was created by God, because where are you going to come up with that from just out of nothing?
Well, you know how secularists are obsessed with stuff coming out of nothing, so there we go.
And it comes from a very, very natural, logical place. A lunar month is 28 days. You want to work and you want to have time not working. And you want it to be consistent on a 28-day month. So what do? Divide it by 4.
So why aren't our months 28 days?
Because the Romans who we have the earliest documentation for 7-day weeks got tired of intercalary months. That would be extra days added on to the end of the year to bring the lunar calendar in line with the solar calendar. And agriculture works a lot better on a solar calendar than a lunar calendar.
Okay.
So for an agricultural-based society, the Romans had the bright idea of setting up a solar calendar. It took a couple of revisions to get it accurate.
Okay.
And that ended up getting us to a mix of 28, 30, and 31-day months. None less than 28, because that would be insane. And occasionally 29. Going less than 28 days would be insane because that's less than a lunar month. And they were starting from a point of lunar months.
Okay.
So they were just dividing up the extra days on the year onto the months instead of having them all at the end of the year.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the whole reason for the week. It has nothing to do with creation. It has nothing to do with anything divine. It is just
moon, sun, math.
The 4 phases of the moon work out to every 7 days. They switch.
Sweet.
All right, let's talk about some news. And Lauren, you want to talk about impeachment?
Yeah, it's this really cool jam where you take peaches and mint and you boil it together and it creates this like minty peach jelly jam.
And then you put it into a jar?
Goes really good with pork. No, we're talking about Trump. I just want to talk about it because this is historical. Mm-hmm. This is a huge deal. And the people that have testified publicly so far are proving the case that it needs to happen more so than less.
Yeah. And it's worth noting that the people who've testified so far are nonpartisan civil servants.
Right. They're just doing their jobs. They don't care who the president is. They're not pro or anti-president. They're career-minded, so they're going to do everything they can to keep their jobs. But, yeah.
They're also all career diplomats. So if the topic is foreign policy, they all have decades and decades of foreign policy experience and how that policy remains consistent from administration to administration.
Yeah. What's driving me crazy more about the inquiry so far than just about anything is the people trying to determine the watchability of it and trying to... Kylie, what? The term media circus comes to mind. Mm-hmm. So the first day was 2 guys, and it was pretty boring. A lot of facts about who heard what from when, from secondhand sources, and everybody's like, okay, this is really boring. The media was saying it was really boring. I'm like, no, media, your job is to report it, not to tell the American people whether or not it's boring.
It turns out that was 2 articles.
Yeah.
All of the rest were just about the facts that were presented. Unfortunately, what makes people angry is what gets shared the most and what the algorithm will show you.
True.
So if it's something that pisses people off, it's what you're going to be shown.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that is the stuff that was shown to me. But it was also the stuff that was on our local news, on Google News.
Yeah.
Was this thing about, oh, how boring. Media's, talking about how boring it was. So the next one that they have is a woman who was forced out of her position. And then everybody's complaining about how it was one big therapy session. And if they wanted, somebody to cry for the camera, then they should have done it with somebody else. And it was just like, no, you guys.
Well, and one of the big issues here is the Democrats are keeping on point with going through the facts and trying to stay as dispassionate as possible through the process.
Right. They're trying to paint a picture of what happened via other people's perspectives with the evidence that they have access to. Because actual proof about anything that's happened isn't freely available because of the
cover-up.
Because it's a cover-up. So they don't... That's why they are taking it from second sources and blah-de-blah.
And the Republicans are...
And technically, Brett Kavanaugh cried more than Yanovich did.
And the Republicans through this process are being as circusy as they can.
Yeah, they are. Although I have discovered a Twitter account that follows, what's his name? Jordan's jacket. Because the man never wears a jacket. So there's a Twitter account that's from the point of view of his jacket being left behind at all of these majors. Like, okay, today's the day. We're going to go in front of, 1 million people on TV, live TV, and he left me on the chair. It's like, oh, poor jacket. He's never wearing a jacket, and I don't know why he bothers carrying it around with him.
So Jordan's...
It's hilarious.
Jordan's basically...
And he's also an ass.
He's basically been the person on... Not just basically. He's been the person on point for the defense. Even though this is an investigation, not a trial, there should not be somebody on defense.
Right.
This is an investigation. This should be everybody trying to get the facts. And yeah, Representative Jordan is being he's the point person for being the douchebag. Ratcliffe is also being quite the douchebag.
But it would be fun to, if it wasn't a daytime thing, it would be fun to watch in the evening with shots available. And every time Schiff looks like he's about to punch somebody, take a shot. Because, oh my God, you can almost see the vein on his forehead. It's hilarious. Gentleman is not recognized. Shot. Anyway, I just wanted to cover that this is really super important, and to not talk about it would be a crime. But we're not really going to go into it.
Right. And I think one of the key points, and this is something that a point that Schiff made during the second day of the public hearings, is bribing a foreign official to try to dig up dirt on your opponent is horrible. He went into a lot better detail on this. We went into a lot of detail and was like, and if this isn't an impeachable offense, then what is?
Blowjobs.
And I think this is something that everybody needs to think of, is if the impeachment power that is in the Constitution has any meaning.
Where's the line?
There has to be a line. And this, to a lot of people, is crossing that line. And to the people who don't think it's crossed the line, I want to know where they think the line is.
Short of Trump walking out and shooting somebody in the head in broad daylight like he said he could get away with.
That should be easier to get away with, actually, because the impeachment power is in place specifically to address this exact scenario. It is to prevent from somebody abusing the power of the presidency to corruptly interfere with re-election efforts.
Right, so you don't become a dictator.
Exactly. So this is exactly what impeachment is for. And when they were debating on whether or not to put impeachment in the Constitution, initially the argument against was winning because, yeah, they have to stand for re-election. Let the people vote. And then it was pointed out that, yeah, we're giving somebody a whole lot of power. They can make sure they win.
Every time. Putin.
Nixon. And so, yeah, this is it's big. It's really important.
Oh, and you also shouldn't be tweeting threats to the person who is actively testifying because, oh shit, they're going to bring that up during the testimony. Which was surprising and hilarious.
And the way Schiff responded to Trump's threats on Yovanovitch during her testimony suggested that will make its way into the articles of impeachment.
Yeah, because that pissed him off.
Oh, yeah. There were also calls from the Republicans to get eyewitnesses there, and they brought up, we can't talk to any. They won't come.
It's like, we need the whistleblower. We need the person who started it all. It's like, well, you're welcome to bring the person who started it all. President Trump is welcome to come testify at any time. It's like, oh, mic drop. It was awesome. What a bomb.
And they've got subpoenas on all the people that have been actively involved in the process all the way along, and they're refusing to show up.
Actively breaking the law by not showing up.
And so that will hopefully be obstruction of justice articles of impeachment. All right, moving on. So we've got a follow-up on a story we talked about previously with the fundamentalist takeover of Moscow, Idaho, that is in the works.
Yeah. Home of University of Idaho, the Palouse.
Fundamentalist pastor Douglas Wilson of Christ Church of Moscow is planning his spiritual takeover of the city of 25,000.
Spiritual takeover.
He wants to make it a Christian town through genuine cultural engagement that provides Christian leadership in the arts, in business, in education, in politics, and in literature.
Okay, sounds fluffy like what every other church says. This guy just has the money to back it up.
Well, this isn't the fluffiness that most churches want. He wants to run the town.
Right. He lost an election bid because he was trying, let's control the town that way. Well, that didn't work out. So what's the next best way? Well, I don't know if he is professional real estate mogul or if this is just a side thing that he's doing. But now he's buying up properties in downtown Moscow, claiming, urban decay, revitalization, that kind of stuff. But he's basically planning on putting in Christian-friendly only businesses.
Which will really change the feel and flavor of a cute little college town.
Yeah. We don't need boutiques with cute little shops or restaurants. No, we need more Christian Science reading rooms and...
Oh, no, that's not Christian. That wouldn't be the right Christian.
Right, but as an example...
The evangelical version of Rexburg.
Yeah. Yeah.
Strip malls and
But it's not going to work because it's a college town and it's not a Christian college. It is a public university that is 7 miles away from another university. It's a party college.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter how Christian-y he makes the downtown area, it's not going to do anything because the university area is going to always be blue. It's always going to be secular, thankfully.
Yeah.
And as long as they can keep kids from drinking themselves to death, should be fine. She escaped.
Yep, that's okay. A meta-analysis has been completed of 83 studies looking at the relationship between intelligence and religiosity.
Oh, this one comes up once in a while. Yeah.
This is new.
It's the same news every time, right?
It's this because they keep on finding the same result.
Let's put another study in there, though.
Yep. This time, this one was looking at 83 different studies on the topic. So trying to look at every study on the relationship between religiosity and intelligence.
And the numbers say?
There is a negative correlation between religiosity and intelligence.
Negative correlation, just for a clarification.
The more religious you are, the less intelligent you are likely to be.
Yeah. Obviously, there is room for interpretation there, I think. Especially when you start looking at the edges. But typically... Now, did this meta-analysis compensate for education, for race, age, that kind of thing? Do you know? Or did they go straight just for the numbers?
I do not know that.
Okay.
I do know that the limitation on it is that it is only looking at the United States.
Okay.
So they do acknowledge that this wouldn't necessarily translate to Eastern religions. Based on the demographics they're looking at, it would at least should apply to Europe as well as the US and probably Western world and Africa as well.
Okay. Yeah.
But they do explicitly rule out East Asia as it wouldn't necessarily correlate there. It is outside of the scope of what they looked at. One of the things they were kind of expecting to see would be maybe that correlation weakening. It isn't.
Oh, as time goes on?
As time goes on. And the reason why you would think it would weaken would be as more and more, especially educated people, leave religion, you would think, and just as more people in general leave religion, you would think that would water down the correlation, because it used to be basically the non-religious were your top professors and everybody else was religious. And that's not the world we're in anymore. And there's no correlation, or there's no change in the correlation.
Kylie, put down the Bible.
Now, correlation is not causation.
Right.
I don't think anybody would argue that being religious makes you dumb.
No.
But I think you could easily argue that the more intelligent you are, the more likely you are to recognize the bullshit in religion. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It also depends on what kind of intelligence you're talking about. The ability to problem solve and critically think is...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ohio has a bill working through their legislature called the Student Religious Liberties Act.
This is such bullshit.
This would make it so that students can't be penalized for scientifically inaccurate work as long as the reasoning is because of their religious beliefs.
So the obvious one here is you're taking a biology class. They do the first chapter on evolution.
Yep.
And a kid fails the test because he or she writes down God created, everything. And they can't technically fail the test.
Right.
Because their answer is based on religion.
If you had a test with question of the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, either answer, if that's a true-false question, would be fine. You wouldn't be able to grade any test on anything origins related.
Yeah. And it sucks because the teachers are suffering, the kids are suffering, all because of very few parents or religious leaders feel like that this should be I can't even believe that this made it into the legislature. Yeah. There. I mean, it's just, this should have been tabled right away. But for some reason, people insist that evangelicals have more voting power than non-religious. And that's just,
well,
drives everything.
For a reason why people think evangelicals have more political power. Every Republican in the Ohio House of Representatives voted for this bill.
Well, you don't want to punish kids for their religious views. It sounds like a perfect Republican argument. But then you start looking into, okay, why are we letting religion determine what is taught in schools when that is supposed to be very separate?
Yep. Well, it's not really any different than how when they have bills in the Idaho legislature to end the religious exemptions on child welfare laws, every Republican opposes the rules.
Because they think it's political suicide to go against something like that. And I would argue that it's not anymore. That there's enough Republicans out there who are non-religious and wouldn't necessarily vote that way. It's hard to make that argument, obviously, because so many people vote by party. But more and more Republicans are losing faith in the Republican Party. And stuff like this is just going to drive more of a wedge in there.
All right. We're back from a break that our listeners don't know happened, but yeah.
Life and editing.
Yep. So, next up in the news, we've got Ben Hart. He is moved to Kentucky, and this is after retiring from the Postal Service, and wanted to keep the same license plate, vanity plate that he had in Ohio.
Okay.
And was rejected. You want to guess what the plate was?
Was it an atheist plate?
I'm God.
I'm God.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So he was rejected in 2016 with the state saying that it was not in good taste and that it could distract other drivers and possibly lead to confrontations.
That is the risk he takes on having something like that, but it's not up to the state to decide that.
Yep. Which is what you're in good company on that one, because that's what U.S. District Judge Gregory Van Tattenhove from the Eastern District of Kentucky, he determined that the state had violated the First Amendment. The lawsuit had been filed on his behalf by the ACLU and FFRF.
Good old FFRF.
Yep. So, as it turns out, if you're going to allow people to have speech on their plates, you have to allow people to have speech on their plates.
Now, there are rules about profanity, and I'm guessing that's the same reason they consider it to be offensive and a distraction to other drivers.
It's with profanity, where that ruling comes in is it is considered permissible to limit obscenity. And,
I mean, to get me started on that, that's total bullshit too. But
yeah, but that's been, the Supreme Court has ruled a long time ago that you can prohibit obscenity, which is why you can't cuss on radio or TV.
Right.
And it's all based on what the community considers to be obscene, unless it falls into something that is explicitly protected, like religious speech, unless you're going to just ban all messages of a religious nature.
So you could do FKGOD? Come on, that's
tougher one.
Religious.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how Kentucky handles this one, whether they will just...
I don't suppose they have one of those "In God We Trust" license plates.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
That would be fun. In God we trust. I'm God. With a horn that plays La Cucaracha. just for style.
But yeah, this will be interesting. But he got his plate.
Good for him.
That identifies himself as God.
All right. Now, if only he had a popular podcast.
The I'm Godcast.
Yes.
Oh, man. All right, so we're going to move on to Nigeria.
Okay.
This one's not about a Nigerian prince. It is a Nigerian pastor.
Those are always the more fun ones.
Yep.
Nigeria, home of the scams. Sorry, Nigerians, for who work honest living.
Right. The Nigerian prince scam is a very old one, dating back to early modern
like 200
France.
years old or something ridiculous.
First documented case of it was early 1800s.
More power to you.
In France.
So many princes.
Yeah. But this Nigerian pastor, he identifies as Evangelist Chidi Eki, 46 years old, and he claims that he successfully had completed a 21-day dry fast.
That's no water, I'm guessing?
A dry fast would be no water.
No food, no water for 21 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
So he then decided to go ahead and do a 40-day fast, just like Jesus.
What?
In the wilderness.
Okay.
So he left
So this guy was nuts.
He left his church and his wife and 2 children. And
did he at least get healthy before he turned around and went back out?
I'm going to hope so.
God.
But he wandered out into the bush.
Never to be seen again.
Exactly.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
Oh. Womp womp.
Yeah, there were people who'd go out and check on him the first couple of weeks, and they'd find him singing and praying loudly.
Delirious.
And then when they'd go back in like the 3rd and 4th week...
They heard nothing?
They heard nothing.
They didn't put up a search party at that point?
Eventually, they found the corpse.
Yeah, okay. Ew. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's no fun.
Now, okay, so fasting. I learned a lot about fasting in my education. Studying to be a pastor, fasting is encouraged. We even had, I don't know remember if it was actually an assignment or just something you could get extra credit for in a couple classes. And,
starve yourself and get a gold star.
I did a 24-hour fast
Well, that's a pansy
during my
fast.
undergrad. That's sundown to sundown. So you're just missing 2 meals. And then I did a 36-hour fast in grad school, and that's
harder.
Sundown to sun up with a full day in between. That was much harder.
Yeah.
And like when I did that one, it was I was able to use it for credit for a class.
That's so sick.
Yeah. I also used it as an opportunity to be fasting and praying, begging God to come back to me.
Yeah, you were legit trying to...
And nothing.
Score points.
Now, I drank a lot of water.
Obviously, you weren't delirious enough.
No, I drank water. I have been delirious before, backpacking after not eating well. And it took a lot of salt and a lot of water to get out of the deliriousness.
Mm. Is that when you started speaking Greek?
Yeah.
Now, were you actually speaking Greek, or did you think you were speaking Greek? You were like, I'm speaking fluent Greek, but really you're just like mumbling. I wish somebody had recorded it.
Nobody in the group would have known the difference.
Yeah, we're on the mountain here, and my friend here is almost passed out. He's mumbling something. I'm going to record it. Poke him with a stick.
My recollection
for future reference
that I was doing pretty decent, proficient Koine Greek. Not modern Greek, ancient Greek.
Yeah, no, you were probably just
yeah. Anyway.
Marmot.
Anyway, so but with a fast, you can do, it's always encouraged that if you're going to do it, drink a lot of water. That's the thing that's going to screw you up the most is dehydration. Mm. Your electrolytes are going to get fucked up regardless, but keep hydrated or you're going to be in really bad shape.
You can't sneak in Gatorade or Pedialyte when you're on a fast. That's too food-like.
You'd have to be on a juice fast for that, and that's not a good religious fast.
Okay. That's subpar fasting.
If you do really want to go with a dry fast, 36 hours is about as far as you can go safely.
Okay.
With no water. 3 days is the limit because at 3 days with no water, your chance of death starts to climb rapidly.
Okay.
At that point, you're at severe dehydration. If you've taken nothing in by mouth, you've reached severe dehydration by 3 days. You're probably going to die. By a week, you're definitely dead.
Okay. So he was definitely sneaking some water.
Oh, yeah. He's a liar and a lying piece of shit. 14 days is about as far as you can reasonably go without food. And even that...
Which sounds like that's about how far he got.
Yeah, and reasonable is even a stretch because by the 7-day mark, you're starting to... Assuming you're not severely overweight, that's when you're starting to digest your internal organs.
Okay.
You're digesting muscle and organs.
So I just need to starve myself for a week to get rid of this little tummy fat, huh?
No, that's not quite how that works.
Damn it. It's never that easy.
But by
easy, I mean terrible for you.
By end of a 21-day fast, he'd be fucked. Now, there are always exceptions to this. These are just kind of standard guidelines where there is serious risk of long-term permanent damage. Going 40 days is not possible for
anybody besides Jesus
reasonably do.
Who cheated, because obviously water, wine, bread, fish, that kind of... He was making shit, so he was good.
The story's bullshit anyway.
No, yeah, obviously. But I get short-term fasting. I've heard that it is it's meditative almost.
Yeah.
Because you have to sit there and obsess about it. Because you're hungry. You can't not think about it. So you're focused on one thing. And it helps you be more clearly think of some things, spirituality, for example.
And a big point.
But why is it encouraged to go longer than, say, 24 or 36 hours? How is that at all beneficial to anybody?
Nobody encourages. I can't say nobody.
Because people do it all the time.
Crazy people.
Breatharians.
Okay, so my hypothesis on it is you start fasting and you start fucking up your gut.
Okay. Oh.
The more you fuck up your gut, the crazier you get. And the crazier you get, typically the more
Looking at you, brother-in-law.
The more devout you get, and the more devout you get, the more acts of devotion you're going to take as you get crazier and crazier.
And it seems more reasonable when you're dehydrated and hungry and
you've already fucked up your gut.
And if you try to eat anything or sneak something, it makes you sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a sad story. A little bit funny. Don't do long fasts. Don't fast, but definitely don't do long fasts.
I can go maybe a couple hours. No, that's not true. I can go a day.
Yeah, but why?
Mostly forgetting.
Yeah. So, Natural News.
Oh, no.
Is a US-based site that back in...
Should be shut down.
June was booted off of Facebook.
Okay, partially shut down then.
Where it had 3 million followers.
Oh, that's right. This is the one that
then
brother-in-law posts a lot of crap from.
Yeah, right after that, their Twitter account and YouTube accounts were also removed. Going all the way back to 2017, Google had already started demoting it in search listings. Well, having had huge hits and losses in the US market, they have moved on to Brazil.
Okay.
Where they now account for almost a third of all misinformation on social media in Brazil.
Oh my gosh. That's something to be proud of.
Brazil is a country where 13% of people don't vaccinate themselves or their children. So a country with a lot of anti-vaxxers, it's prime territory for them.
Yeah. All those fake articles and opinion as truth, fact.
Conspiracy theories as fact.
Yeah. Ugh. No bueno. No bueno.
Oh, man. The one I actually looked at to see if it was that I actually followed through that my brother had shared quite a few years ago was comparing, it was some GMO produce to an organic produce.
Corn.
I think it was corn.
Was it the corn one where
side-by-side
it showed pictures? Oh my God.
Oh, it was complete bullshit.
Nada de bom. Bom? Nada de bom.
Nada de bom?
Nada de bom. That's no bueno.
Oh.
Which is no good in Portuguese.
Yeah, no good.
Nada de bom.
And those pictures in that article trying to show the differences weren't representative of either.
No, they were just, they could have easily just been Shutterstock photos of corn.
Yeah. One of crappy, rotten corn, and the other was a very nice, lush.
Yeah, I've seen the one where they show which ones the wild birds go for. And the one will be stripped bare and the other one won't be touched. And it's like, well, which one's the natural one? It's like, oh my God, you guys aren't even using...
That doesn't mean anything.
No, if you at least you post the pictures of the corn side by side.
Yeah.
Don't just have two separate images of corn from two separate occasions.
And a new study has found that the majority of all anti-vax ads on Facebook are funded by just two organizations.
Okay, who do we need to break kneecaps?
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Oh.
Yep. His World Mercury Project and Larry Cook's Stop Mandatory Vaccinations. Between those two groups, they have bought 54% of all anti-vax ads.
Oh, wow.
Kennedy also did and I think it might have been those two together, did a documentary that got thrown out of a bunch of film festivals.
Oh, yeah. Who is Robert F. Kennedy?
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the son of Robert F. Kennedy, brother of John F. Kennedy.
Right. Oh, okay. Okay. The Kennedys are weird. I have a hard time keeping track.
Because there's a bazillion of them.
Yeah. Well, that's...
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Kennedy.
He's a douche.
Now, Facebook, sadly, is where 68% of Americans get their news.
Yeah. Okay. No, stop it. It's one thing to see something posted and to go look it up to verify it. It's another to just take it for its word, though, and Facebook is terrible about that.
Now, where 68% of Americans get their news is not just that 68% of Americans see news on Facebook, but that is where they see all of their news.
That's just effed up. No, those are people who just don't care. Those are the people who don't look at news.
Yeah. And yeah, just two groups buying almost all the anti-vax ads.
All right, well, there you go. Follow the money, and you will feel dirty and gross.
Yeah.
I want some of that money.
Oh, man.
Use it to vaccinate my kid. Oh, wait, it's free, because my insurance isn't stupid.
Well, because we have insurance.
Yeah.
And if you don't have insurance, you can go to the health department and get free vaccines, or just about anywhere else. Nobody should ever have to pay for vaccines.
Yeah.
Just period.
Yep.
There's
Or birth control.
We need to thank SoJo for upgrading her patronage.
Aww.
So thank you, SoJo. If you want to become a patron or make a change in your patronage, you can find out how at atheistnomads.com/donate.
You should read that tweet that you tweeted. The tweet that you twitted.
Oh, it was for hashtag thank you patrons.
It was sweet.
Our patrons have helped power the podcast, and it keeps it going through tough times like losing jobs, having a baby, and losing co-hosts. Without our patrons, there is not a chance that we could have kept this going since 2012.
Yeah.
It really makes a difference.
The baby is a big one.
It's tough to keep the podcast going, and having that financial support, it helps. It makes it so that we don't have to worry about finding the money to keep doing the show, and also provides the financial incentive to power through when life gets tough.
Yeah, that has accounted for a lot of Dustin's bullheadedness and lack of vacations.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we need to start getting on that, don't we? It's that time of year. Time to start pre-recording episodes.
Yep. Already have started on that for the Thanksgiving one.
Okay. Good job.
Yeah. And, but yeah, so you can always help out. And I do want to provide another teaser for the new podcast. I have bought the domain.
He's obsessed with buying domains. I'm so proud of him for only buying the one.
There was a chance.
Please tell me you only bought one.
I thought about buying as many as 3. I only bought one.
Proud of you. I'm proud of you. I know how hard that is.
So that's as much of a teaser as I'm going to give. I'm not going to actually say what the domain is because the website is...
A dead giveaway?
Well, it's a dead giveaway, and also it's not ready.
Oh, yeah. You haven't even done anything to it. You bought the domain. That's not really...
I've got a website up. It's not configured, really.
Okay.
So it's... Yeah, but it's there. I've purchased it. It's exciting. And it won't cost a lot of money, but doing another podcast does add some expense. So yeah, patronage is always appreciated. If you want to contact us, you can fill out the contact form at atheistnomads.com/contact. Email us at contact@atheistnomads.com or hit us up on any of the social media sites. And if you want to help the podcast in a way that is not money, I could use some help with a few things. So if you have some time that you're willing to commit on an ongoing basis, get in touch.
Oh, sweet. I think that's the first time I've ever heard you actually ask for help outside of just money.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. And remember...
Be part of Team Nomad.
Yeah. And remember, not all those who wander are lost. Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/atheistnomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.
Kylie, let me wipe your face.
No.
Please.